Ever felt like you're not strong enough, not smart enough, not brave enough for the challenges ahead? What if I told you that the smallest, most terrified person in the room could be God's chosen hero? This is the story of a man hiding in a hole in the ground, who God called a mighty warrior. It's a story that proves it's not about our strength, but about who sends us. Get ready, because what you're about to hear might just change how you see yourself forever. For 7 long years, the people of Israel were living a nightmare. They had once again turned away from God, and as a result, they were left vulnerable to the cruel oppression of the Midianites. Imagine this. Every time harvest season came, a massive horde of Midianites and their allies would swarm the land like a plague of locusts. They were so numerous, you couldn't even count them or their camels. They didn't just take a little, they devoured everything. They destroyed the crops, stole the livestock, sheep, oxen, donkeys, and left the Israelites with nothing. The land was stripped bare, and the people were starving and desperate. Their only option was to run and hide. They abandoned their homes and fled to the mountains, seeking refuge in dens, caves, and fortified strongholds. The very people God had promised this land to were now living like fugitives in their own country. In the midst of this overwhelming suffering, the Israelites finally did the one thing they should have done from the start. They cried out to the Lord for help. Their pain was so great, their cries echoed from the caves and mountains. In response, God didn't immediately send a warrior, He sent a prophet. This prophet came with a powerful message, reminding them of who God was and what He had done. He said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians and from all who oppressed you. I drove them out before you and gave you their land." The prophet reminded them of God's command, "I am the Lord your God. Do not worship the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you live." But then came the gut punch. "But you have not obeyed me." It was a tough love moment. God was showing them that their suffering was a direct result of their disobedience. Now, let's zoom in on one man, Gideon. We find him not on a battlefield, but in a wine press. And he wasn't making wine, he was threshing wheat. A wine press is a pit dug into the ground, a place you'd go to be hidden. He was beating out his grain in secret, hoping the Midianites wouldn't spot him and steal his family's meager food supply. This is a picture of fear. He's doing a farmer's work in a hidden ditch, just trying to survive. Suddenly, an angel of the Lord appeared to him. And what the angel said must have sounded like a joke. He looked at this terrified man, hiding in a hole, and declared, "The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor, mighty warrior." Gideon probably looked around to see who the angel was talking to. Him, a mighty warrior. He was the very definition of a man living in fear. Gideon's response was full of doubt and despair. He shot back, "Pardon me, my Lord, but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all His wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian." You can hear the pain and confusion in his voice. He's essentially saying, the stories are great, but my reality stinks. Where is God now? But the Lord looked at him and answered directly. "Go in the strength you have," He said, "and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" Notice, God didn't say go find some strength. He said, "Go in the strength you have. Even that small, fearful, hiding in a hole strength was enough, because God was the one sending him. Gideon was still unconvinced. He protested, "Pardon me, my Lord, but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." He saw himself as insignificant, from a weak family, from a minor tribe. But God's reassurance was simple and powerful. "I will be with you." That was the game changer. It didn't matter if Gideon was the weakest of the weak. With God on his side, he would have everything he needed. To prove it was really God speaking, Gideon asked for a sign. He rushed to prepare an offering of meat and unleavened bread. When he brought it back, the angel told him to place it on a rock. Gideon did, and then the angel touched the food with the tip of his staff. Instantly, fire flared up from the rock and consumed the entire offering. And just like that, the angel of the Lord disappeared. In that moment, Gideon knew this was real. This was God. That very night, God gave Gideon his first mission, and it wasn't to fight the Midianites. It was to clean up his own backyard. God told him to tear down his father's altar to the pagan god Baal and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Then he was to build a proper altar to the Lord and sacrifice a bull on it. This was a direct attack on the idolatry that had caused all the trouble in the first place. But Gideon was still afraid, not of God, but of his family and the town's people, so he did it under the cover of darkness. He obeyed, but he did it scared, and that's okay. The next morning, when the townspeople saw their idols destroyed, they were furious and wanted to kill Gideon. But his father stood up for him, cleverly saying, if Baal really is a god, he can defend himself. Of course, the idol did nothing. With this first act of obedience behind him, the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon. It was like a divine empowerment, clothing him with courage and authority. He blew a trumpet, and his own clan gathered to him. He sent messengers throughout the northern tribes, and an army began to assemble. But even with the Spirit upon him and an army at his back, a flicker of doubt remained. Gideon needed one more confirmation. He said to God, if you will save Israel by my hand as you have promised, look, I will place a wool fleece on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all the ground is dry, then I will know. The next morning, it was exactly as he had asked. He wrung out the fleece, and it was full of water. But Gideon, ever the cautious one, asked for a reverse sign. This time he prayed, make the fleece dry. This time he prayed, make the fleece dry.